He will, however, fall. The warnings were loud and the area was frozen. But Lisa, she's never given up easily. She took hold of the wheel and faced the most hazardous area of ice on the map, defying counsel and a variety of odds. This was a test of survival, bravery, and tenacity rather than just another haul. Even seasoned truckers were stunned by what transpired next. This ride gets frosty very quickly, so fasten your seatbelt. The queen of frigid roads is Lisa. Nobody ever ends up behind an 18-wheeler speeding down a frozen highway at 16 miles per hour for enjoyment. And unless they have a burning desire deep inside, nobody ever does it on the worst roads in North America. Lisa Kelly has carried that type of passion ever since she got into a truck for the first time. Because ice road truckers is Lisa's favorite spot, you may have seen her there. That woman with the steely nerves that remain composed while her tires skate on black ice sheets, the mischievous smile, and the braided blonde hair tucked under a beanie. Given her current addiction to frigid roads, some would assume that she was born that way or has always been that way. However, when Lisa was younger, she was tenacious, which indicates that she didn't hesitate to attempt new things. She was capable of daring anything. She trained as a motocross racer and rode a dirt bike. For a while, she even participated in professional competition. Lisa was learning how to operate machinery, make sharp turns, and eat mud for breakfast at a time when most teenage girls were daydreaming about makeup or shopping excursions. She was more mature than her friends and responsible from a young age. Lisa was a school bus driver prior to trucking. It wasn't even amusing. She had to put in a lot of effort at a very young age to drive to and from school and back home to deal with household duties and other problems. Her experience as a truck driver taught her how to control big cars in dangerous situations and maintain composure when 40 yelling children decided to try her patience. Unbelievably, that employment served as a springboard for her life. It provided her with a sense of direction and accountability. Something inside her gradually changed, and she no longer only wanted to drive. She wanted to haul, too. However, it wasn't easy to be a female truck driver in Alaska. The fact that the employment is only for women made people not respect it. There was no queue of mentors waiting to help Lisa. She had more skeptics and rolled eyes than supporters. When she eventually made her way into the trucking industry, she heard it all. "You're too little. When things get difficult, you'll cry. The season won't last for you." Lisa was first shown to fans in Season 3 of the History Channel series, and she quickly began shattering heads. The producers didn't use her as a gimmick, and she was the first female driver to appear on the show. She could do the job, which is why she was there. She was competent and talented. She was able to compete with the veterans. Those cold paths had been traversed by men like Alex Dabagorsky and Jack Jesse for longer than she had been alive. And Lisa didn't flinch from the first day. Let's make everything clear. Dramatic editing is a strength of reality TV, and she quickly began shattering heads. The producers didn't use her as a gimmick, and she was the first female driver to appear on the show. She could do the job, which is why she was there. She was competent and talented. She was able to compete with the veterans. Those cold paths had been traversed by men like Alex Dabagorsky and Jack Jesse for longer than she had been alive. And Lisa didn't flinch from the first day. Let's make everything clear. Dramatic editing is a strength of reality TV, and harsh slopes, such as the notorious Atigun Pass, a mountain range renowned for its avalanches and harrowing cliffs. Gas stations and guardrails are scarce. Errors are absolutely not tolerated, because she must prove herself in every mile, load and storm. Lisa is even more vulnerable than men. Other drivers sat quietly, wondering if she should be out there at all, while mechanics double-checked her rig as if they were expecting it to collapse under her control. Despite hearing all of this, Lisa put on her gloves and pressed the gas pedal, not giving much thought to what they were saying about her. She was a popular favorite because of her composure and defiance. She didn't talk trash and wasn't noisy or hostile. She simply performed the task more effectively than most others could. Fans came to see that Lisa was more than simply a show token as the seasons went by. She had the makings of a trucking legend. Most people are unaware of Lisa's true nature, which lies beneath all of that pressure. Lisa has her moments of weakness as well. She coped with her fatigue, loneliness, anxiety, etc. Driving in a blizzard for 12 to 16 hours a day is physically taxing and disrupts your schedule and thoughts. You begin conversing with your steering wheel and lose all sense of stillness. Your capacity to remain concentrated when every part of you cries out for rest is the only thing standing between you and the next catastrophe. And Lisa repeatedly performed that exact action. Without any attempting, she evolved into a role model. Girls began to follow her tail all around the nation and even beyond. She demonstrated to them that fearlessness and femininity were not mutually exclusive. She demonstrated to them that a woman was just as capable as anyone else of handling 80 pounds of steel and ice. However, all of that culminated in a single instance, a single path, a single choice, a single run that would put all she had learned to the test, and a single path that even the veterans didn't want to discuss. One load that no one wanted to try to carry. Storms were moving quickly, and the weather had been worse than anticipated. Just a few days prior, mechanics had raised concerns about her truck, and other drivers had told her straight out that she shouldn't take it. She did, however, say yes. The caution they issued to her: you would even be afraid to drive on a route that has a history of accidents and is notorious for having potholes. Not even mentioning driving and not paying attention to warnings from others. But Lisa was completely unfrightened. Lisa wasn't simply that girl on ice road truckers when this trip came up. She has experienced seasons. In whiteout circumstances, she had transported heavy goods across the Dalton Highway. She transported vital components to isolated oil rigs and outposts, where access was limited to crossing ice bridges and frozen lakes. On Wednesday, they began to caution her about the road. The dispatch center rapidly learned that a vital delivery was required at a distant oil site north of Dead Horse, Alaska, late Wednesday afternoon. It wasn't your typical haul. The site was in danger of shutting down entirely if this emergency generator wasn't delivered within 20 hours. The only viable path was a seldom-traveled diversion with recently cleared gas. This is because crews had not yet been able to dig out the regular road after it was buried by an avalanche a few days prior. That diversion passed across a section of dangerous and unstable terrain. Truckers with decades of experience are known as veteran drivers. Hard pass, they remarked, glancing at the map. Lisa was reportedly cautioned off by Jack Jesse, one of the industry's top ice road drivers and a risk taker. He told her it wasn't worth it. Not that one. Earlier that week, Lisa's heavy-duty Kenworth truck had displayed symptoms of stress. There was nothing important, but sufficient to have her rear axles marked for examination. A minor misalignment that shouldn't have been a problem under normal circumstances. The misalignment, however, can be the difference between having traction and sliding sideways onto a precipice or even a snowbank on that ice. Without holding anything back, The dispatch crew gave her the full breakdown of the situation. They said that this one is not required. Everyone else has said no, but Lisa flatly rejected this, as well as her intuition. Even the experience she had gained, mile by mile, on roads like these, she trusted. The tension remained strong despite that. For safety, the video crew that captured the ice road trucks even contemplated retreating. Producers argued about whether to allow her to try it at all. Lisa was as composed as always, but anyone who knew her would notice that she was intensely focused, something that only occurs when you know that things could soon go out of hand. Prior to her departure, as well as her intuition, even the experience she had gained, mile by mile, on roads like these, she trusted. The tension remained strong despite that. For safety, the video crew that captured the ice road trucks even contemplated retreating. Producers argued about whether to allow her to try it at all. Lisa was as composed as always, but anyone who knew her would notice that she was intensely focused, something that only occurs when you know that things could soon go out of hand. Prior to her departure, just 2 seasons in, a fellow driver, one of the younger guys, came up to her. He gave her a folded note that said, "Refuse and return safely. There's no shame in saying no." She nodded, smiled, and put the folded paper into her glove box, but she remained unconvinced. That evening, Lisa thoroughly inspected her truck. Not once, twice, or even 3 times. She inspected the tires, chains, and nuts. Reluctantly, the mechanics gave her the all clear. She was up and running before morning, the lights piercing the freezing darkness and the motor roaring. Tires chained, coffee in hand, GPS preloaded, and CB radio checked. When she understood it was not a typical path on the Dalton, things became more apparent to her. There was no convoy, no standard checks, and no other vehicles in front of or behind her. Lisa was flying alone. She, her cargo, and miles of unexplored frigid solitude were all on the road. The first and second hours of the trip went without a hitch. Her truck kept steady while the road was partially cleaned, but eventually things started to become problematic. Lisa maintained her hands firm and her gaze fixed on the road. Although she was trained and ready for it, she was unaware that a wind gust advisory had been issued overnight, and no one had alerted her to this fact. A system of tremendous pressure was rapidly advancing. The gusts were harsher the further north she drove. By lunchtime, the CB began to work intermittently, act strangely, and produce static. Then there was a sharp hush as the satellite radio went out. Imagine traversing an ice ridge while carrying 7,000 pounds of steel, with no backup or radio, and with nothing but sheer drops on either side. You would tremble and be afraid of practically everything, including yourself and your thoughts. Lisa wanted to call for assistance, but there was no cell coverage because she was so far from any outpost. Snow had begun to whip up in waves, making it impossible to see behind her. It was only pressure and white noise. And things were going to get even worse. Lisa was starting to feel as though her bones were on fire. Right now, all she wanted was to go back and never set out on a voyage like this again. However, she had already gone too far, and there was no going back now. It was the day she drove. When Lisa arrived at the midway point, everything has already succumbed to the cold. The enormous emergency generator cargo was securely fastened and held steady while the vehicle continued to operate normally. It was strange, because it wasn't apparent or mechanical. It was only an emotion. She had a gut feeling that this journey was different from all others. The journey began quite peacefully, and Lisa left before dawn after accepting the invitation that others had turned down. There were no cheerleaders or flares. On a road that had turned off veterans, a single lady sat behind the wheel of a vehicle that weighed close to 40 tons. It had picked up more quickly than anticipated. For a while, it would be motionless, and then it would flicker. If she didn't lean on it firmly enough, it would push forcefully against her left side, a powerful force that may shift the trailer. She tightened her hold on the wheel. After a few hours, the tire's rubber hardened, the temperature spiked, and everything changed. It was easier for metal to crack. The walkway was not well liked. Some had only used it once or twice, and hardly anyone knew about it. No one had used it alone before Lisa. Now Lisa could see the beginning of it. The entry was flagged with small orange flags. There appeared as though no one had been through this area in weeks due to the fresh snow. Even though the snowplow team had probably been through there 2 days prior, she halted the truck to consider her options. She would give up on the journey and choose to return home at this point, and since she gave it her all, nobody would hold it against her. However, she didn't. She inhaled deeply, exhaled slowly, and then applied the gas. The truck then moved stealthily ahead. The path she was now traveling wasn't really a road. There wasn't even enough snow for her tires on the crowded trail. Not only was there no safety zone, but there were no rails or markings. Lisa was aware that the weight of the trailer could pull her truck down the riverbed bank if the right side tires dropped off the edge. Furthermore, nobody was available to assist her if the ice did break. Her hand remained fixed on the steering wheel. It was sturdy, but not heavy. The wind returned more forcefully after 15 minutes. It was more intricate than before, slamming into her choke from the side. She could feel the tiny tilt of the trailer in her chest, and the heightened terror should have subsided. She slowed the truck, hit the brakes lightly, and let off of the gas pedal. The car and her thoughts were putting too much strain on her. She was on the verge of going crazy when something happened. As her diesel started to solidify, electronics also began to malfunction. More than half an hour ago, her GPS malfunctioned once, and the radio stopped working. The whole affair served as a reminder that she was alone, and that the path ahead was becoming closer. They had told her about the diversion, and this was it. The business discovered a dangerous one-way route that skirted around a partially frozen river, ascended up the side of a ridge, and then descended into a narrow clearing when the normal route was closed due to an avalanche blocking the pass.